that he just looks like a guy who listened to a bit too much MCR in his lifetime, but you would be far from the truth. Sure, he puts on this edgy persona, no pun intended, but Shinjiro is this big sweetheart deep down inside. He just wants to do everything that he can to help out the ones that he cares about and would do anything for them in a heartbeat. He's just a lovable guy, and the way that he develops over the course of the game is probably the best out of any character in this game. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. First, I need to answer the question, who really is Shinjiro Aragaki? Not much is known about Shinjiro's past, or at least I couldn't find that much from my 2 playthroughs and my intensive look on the Mega 10 wiki, which has been a huge help throughout this video making process. Shout out to them! But what I gathered was that he was an orphan just like Akihiko and his sister Miki. And Shinjiro hung out with them all the time. They became so close that Shinjiro started to see them like a family a bit. And he kind of balanced Akihiko's gung-ho energy by being the chill voice of reason with a bit of edge to him. But not like Tokyo Ghoul, more like big titty goth dommy mommies you see on TikTok, but you know, a dude bro. And that was his life for a while. Just chilling with Akihiko and Miki, and it was a vibe. That was until the orphanage that the 3 of them were living in burnt down, and Miki wasn't able to escape. As we know, Akihiko tried to save her, but all the adorts at the orphanage held him back from going inside. And the 2 of them were left with nothing but each other. And it really hurt Shinjiro to see Miki pass away. She was like his little sister, and he loved her with all his heart. But what hurt him more was seeing the grief that Akihiko was going through. This was his best friend, and he just lost his sister. While Akihiko tried to stay strong, Shinjiro could see the pain behind his eyes, and he couldn't bear to see him like this. Akihiko was like a brother to him, and it pained Shinjiro to see him destroyed like this. And because of this, Shinjiro decided that he was going to put up a strong front and help Akihiko in any way that he could. He wanted to be there in his time of need because deep below all the edge was a kind soul that wanted to help out anyone that he could. And Akihiko was like family to him, so this feeling was amplified tenfold. And he for sure tried to help Akihiko. However, it felt as if Akihiko was trying to drift a bit apart from Shinjiro. This was because Akihiko was obsessed with getting stronger all the time. He was always at boxing practice and matches, fighting opponents, and it didn't seem like he was gonna stop. Kind of isolated Shinjiro from Akihiko a bit. Sure, they cared for each other, but it seemed like all Akihiko wanted to do was to just get as strong as he could, with him not really thinking about himself at all. And eventually Akihiko had this opportunity to fight along the secret organization Cease to help him achieve this dream. And while Shinjiro was happy for Akihiko, he felt as if this was getting a bit out of hand. This obsession had become a bit too unhealthy for Akihiko, and he wanted to do something about it. Although he knew that Akihiko wouldn't just give up on this opportunity, so Shinjiro decided he was going to do the next best thing. He was going to join Cease as well. That way he could keep an eye on Akihiko and make sure that he was doing alright and doesn't get himself killed or whatever. So he asked Akihiko if he could be able to join Cease to help out with the cause or whatever he was doing in Cease, although Akihiko didn't want him to. He saw that it had a weaker potential to summon a persona, or something like that. But Shinjiro was not taking no for an answer, and he stormed into Iwatodai dorm. Akihiko and the founding member of Cease, Mitsuru, tried to kick him out, but he wasn't listening. He wasn't going to let Akihiko risk his life for something that he didn't fully understand, unless he was along for the ride. So eventually, after a long back and forth, they eventually let Shinjiro join Cease. And you know what? Life was pretty good as soon as he joined. It felt as if by doing this, Akihiko was able to start moving on. And if things got too dangerous, he would be able to step in and defeat the shadows that were too strong for Akihiko. And on top of that, he started to connect with Mitsuru, and she became a close friend of the 2 of them, with the 3 of them taking out shadows and learning more about what this dark hour thing was all about. And that was Shinjiro's life for a while, but it all changed on the night of October 4th, 2007. The night was just like any other night, where they would do an operation to fight shadows. However, this time, Shinjiro started to lose control over his persona. It started to go berserk. When this happened, Shinjiro tried to tame it, but it was to no avail, and his persona ended up killing an innocent bystander. And this one mistake changed Shinjiro's world. This action was the complete opposite of what he stood for. He tried so hard to be a loving and caring person, yet he just killed this innocent person, which was one of the most evil acts that you can commit. And the worst part was that he wasn't going to be held accountable for his crime. The Kirijo group was just going to sweep this under the rug like nothing ever happened. He was going to get away with murder scot-free, and this didn't set right with Shinjiro. So that night, he decided that he was going to leave Cease forever. He didn't want to wield a power that kills, and Akihiko and Mitsuru tried to convince him to stay, telling him that it wasn't his fault, but he wasn't buying a second of it. it was his persona. He couldn't control it, and it killed someone. There was no one else to put the blame on. So, he left Yu at Todai dorm for good, and started to live on his own. He shortly after stopped attending school because it reminded him of Tartarus and the heinous act that he committed. And he just lived on the streets, fending for himself while also taking drugs to help suppress his persona. He never wanted to release this beast again. If it had the capability of murdering another person, he never wanted to set it free. Sure, the side effects of the drugs were not desirable, but he would rather die from taking them than have someone else die by his powers once more. And that was his life for a while, with him constantly revisiting the site of the crime that he committed to try to atone for his actions, but he knew that it would never be good enough. Akiko constantly visited him to try to get him to rejoin Cease to help their cause, but Shinjiro wouldn't budge. He didn't care about Cease, or the Dark Hour, or fighting shadows, or any of it. He originally joined to help out Akihiko, but he couldn't even do that. In fact, who's to say that he wouldn't summon his persona and kill another person, or even Akihiko? He couldn't take that risk, so he was never going back. Or so he thought. You see, one day, Akihiko told Shinjiro the news that they got a new member on the team. Ken Amada, the son of the victim. This shocked Shinjiro. What were the odds that he, out of all people, would have the potential to wield a persona and would want to join Cease? It seemed too good to be a coincidence, and he wanted to see what it was all about. Akiko then told him that he joined of his own accord, but this still didn't feel right to him. So Shinjiro went back on his vow and returned to Cease temporarily to just get a vibe check on what was going on back at the dorm. And everything seemed normal, although it was very awkward for Shinjiro to interact with Ken, because he was this nice kid and he knew what he did to him. After some time though, Ken asked Shinjiro if he could meet up with him on October 4th at the place where he killed his mom. While there were a few ideas on his head for what this could entail, without hesitation, he said that he would meet up with him on that night. He wanted to make things right, and maybe this could be the way that he could atone for his past. So the two of them met up that night, and Ken let his true colors show. He set this all up so that he could kill Shinjiro. He wanted to get revenge for killing his mom and all the pain caused because of it. And when he told him that, Shinjiro was okay with it. Maybe death was the true escape that he needed. Every day he had been trying to forget what he did, but nothing could erase the memory of him killing Ken's mom. No matter what he did, he always ended up back at the scene of the crime. It was all his fault, and he believed that this was what he deserved. Although, he didn't want Ken to end up like him. Sure, he didn't care if he died. He had already accepted that fate long ago. However, he knew that if Ken did this, he would be just like him, and that Ken would be in the same boat that he was in at this very moment. However, Ken didn't believe a word when he told him that, and at the same moment, Takaya showed up, agreeing with him. Takaya then pulled a gun on the two of them, and Shinjiro instantly shields Ken, confusing both Takaya and Ken in the process. Why would he be protecting his would-be murderer? Well, he may have not cared if he died or not, but Shinjiro couldn't let another person die on his watch. He knows the pain of watching someone die all too well, and he didn't want to go through that again. Although his efforts wouldn't have mattered anyways, because Takaya then spilled the beans on what Ken was going to do after he killed Shinjiro. He was going to kill himself. Hearing this shocked Shinjiro. Ken had his whole life ahead of him. He was a bright kid, and he was just gonna end it all after killing him? He couldn't believe it, but it was true. Takaya didn't care about Ken's future at all, though, and was just ready to bring upon him salvation. But Shinjiro couldn't let this happen, so he instantly tried to rush Takaya to stop him, but he instantly got shot. He couldn't stop him, but it didn't matter to him. He was able to protect Ken from immediate danger, and that was the most important thing for him to do. Takaya then pressed Shinjiro about if they had a navigator on their team that was helping them. Of course, Cease had the Lemon Master Fuka herself, but Shinjiro didn't want anyone else to get hurt in the process. So he told him that there was no one. Takaya obviously didn't believe that and kept pushing his buttons for an answer, getting very physical in the process. But Shinjiro wasn't gonna budge. He wanted to protect everyone. Sure, he didn't care about Cease as an organization that much anymore, but he couldn't just let people die, especially a sweet girl like Fuka. No matter what Takaya was going to throw his way, he was going to stand his ground. He wasn't going to be the reason someone else died. Although there was one thing that Shinjiro didn't take into account. Ken said that he was the navigator of Cease. Shinjiro was stunned by this. Ken was just basically throwing away any chance that he had of surviving the situation. Because of this, Shinjiro tried to stop him from talking, but Takaya just kept kicking him while he was down to stop Shinjiro from even talking. And Ken was okay with this. He believed that there was no point for him to live because Shinjiro was just gonna die without his input anyways, so he was ready to die and see his mom again. But Shinjiro wasn't ready for him to die. Because of this, Shinjiro instantly grabbed Ken into a bear hug and shielded Ken from being shot. Ken didn't understand why he did this at all, and was just in shock from all of this. Meanwhile, Takaya saw all the other members of Season was just like, "Got a blast!" and just fucking dipped out of there. However, Shinjiro was okay with this. While everyone was screaming and crying for Shinjiro to stay alive, Shinjiro was smiling. He knew that he was gonna die, so he was willing to sacrifice himself for Ken. And in a way, it was kind of a way for him to atone for his past. Sure, he was the one that took Ken's mom out of this world, but he wanted to become the person that gave him the opportunity to have a successful life. In fact, in his final breaths, he told Ken to take all that anger that he was feeling at this moment and put all of that energy into living for himself. And once he told him that, Shinjiro was satisfied. While not perfect, he felt as if he made amends with the person that he killed by giving their son a chance to live and grow into someone amazing. And he would be passing away as well. He would finally be getting the punishment that he felt that he deserved for the biggest mistake that he made in his life. But he was happy. After all, this was how he thought things should have been in the first place. And now he could rest easy, knowing that he's somewhat made his wrong into a right. And I love Shinjiro just so much. He's just a great character with such a satisfying arc. And they killed off one of the coolest characters in the game halfway through, and I definitely did not see that coming, and it made me genuinely cry my first time playing. Like, he was my favorite, and I barely got to use him on my first playthrough because I benched him accidentally. I'm such a stupid guy. I ain't even a chill guy anymore. And seeing him die really showed the stakes of the entire situation all of Seas was going through, and it really shaped the game to be a more engaging story as a whole. But aside from his death scene, I just loved how mysterious he was. For most of the game, I just wanted to know more and more. He had this cold vibe around him that was just so cool, and he had several scenes where he didn't have any of his barriers up. He was just this lovable goof that cared about everyone, especially Koromaru. The scenes with Shinjiro and Koromaru were just so good, and it made me even sadder whenever I saw Koromaru during Shinjiro's death. And he's probably the most real person that has ever joined Cease. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, but he can be kind when he wants. And man, just what a guy! I could yap about this man for hours, but if I had to wrap up all my thoughts into just one sentence, I think I would have to say, he's just the man that I just strive to be. And he's a master chef! What can't this man do? TLDR, the S in Shinjiro stands for S tier, and I would die for this man. I would pull a Shinjiro to save Shinjiro. That's how much I love him.
たゆたぶ世界を君の手で守ってから今はただ翼を畳んで